Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting, June 4th, 2025. Thank you for everybody for attending and taking part in this meeting. All committee members must attend in person except those with disabilities as defined under the Americans with Disabilities Act, who may request an accommodation for the chairperson of the board permitting them to attend via Zoom. So there is one committee member who is attending via Zoom. It's Sylvia Alexander. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Debbie Allen. I am the chairperson of Traffic and Transportation.
Dr. Wayne DeBeetham, board member.
Margaret Della, board member. Julie Reyes, chairperson of the board.
Farah Kuehl Rubin, district manager.
Okay, excellent. We do have a quorum this evening. I need a motion to approve the May 15 minutes. Motion.
Second.
All 4 minutes? In favor of the minutes? Sylvia, is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. We're going to start first with if the person is here for September 11th SAPO application. Right, we're gonna. I see, okay, she's by Zoom. Can you unmute her, please?
Yep.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
okay. I'm representing the Friends of Riverdale 9/11 Memorial Garden. We are holding a public ceremony on September 11th to honor local heroes who perished on 9/11. They are Riverdale, Kingsbridge firemen and NYPD. And our plaque also acknowledges local civilians who perished at the World Trade Center that day. The garden is located on Fieldston Road and West 253rd Street. We invite participation from religious leaders and students, and the event takes place at the garden at 5 p.m. We are co-sponsored by Riverdale Country School, and we are asking for the SAPO because the event has really grown. And while we did have some NYPD assistance with traffic in the past, we have grown so much that we felt that we would apply for the SAPO for safety. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does the committee have any questions for this applicant?
I just want to add that we would be, the area would be West 253rd to West 255th, that we would be closing, and it's only a matter of no more than 2 hours.
And you have approval from the police department?
Oh, yeah, the police have participated every year. We've done this, but it's been small. We have the participation of the police department and the fire department and, you know, other luminaries.
Any questions? Any other questions? We're going to vote. Any abstentions? Anybody opposed? Application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna move along on the agenda. 2025 New Balance Bronx 10-mile half marathon. Is that applicant present in the room or on Zoom?
Yep.
Is the applicant there?
Yes, they're just unmuting themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Vanessa, you want to kick things off?
Yes, sure. So I'm Vanessa Rodriguez Payne. I'm the head of community engagement and government affairs for the New York Roadrunners. Today we're discussing our race, the New Balance Bronx 10 miler, which takes place on Sunday, September 14th at 8 a.m. As we work on the logistics for the race, my main role with the organization is to ensure that the community is aware of the race by providing information about our street closures as well as no parking. Prior to the race, we sent out messaging via email to the people that we have in our contact list, and please feel free to send me any information for anyone that's here that would like for that information to come to them. We send an initial email just giving the information about the race. Our second email will go out a couple weeks before the race, identifying the no parking and the street closures. And then the last messaging will advise constituents that they will that the race is coming. We notify community leaders, the mayor's office. We work together with the mayor's office for this event. We work with DOT, FDNY, MTA, NYPD, and all community agencies to ensure that the community is aware and that we're taking proper precautions, not only for the runners, but for the people that are spectators and the community at large. We're also ensuring that Waze and Google is notified about this race, so anybody coming within the community is aware that the race is happening and they can be detoured. We work with the emergency system, which we'll provide in our emails and communication. It's a text system in English and in Spanish that will advise you when the streets will open, when they were closed, so on and so forth. And again, we do communicate with our local community boards that we affect. We connect with BP Vanessa Gibson, council members in the area, assembly members, and the senators within your district. We focus on engaging the community and coming out and running and learning more about our free programs. All of our programs are free, and on that day, we will be hosting a kids run that hosts kids from stage 1 races from 2 to 11 years old. So it's cute to see 2-year-olds running and active, 8 to 18 and 12 to 18. And I have Michael Tenebruso on here, whom will talk more about the history of the race and more of the logistics of the race.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Like Vanessa said, I'm Mike Tenebruso. I'm the director of youth events at New York Roadrunners. I'll give you a little brief history about the event and some details. I won't go like super in depth, but the event has been going on since 1995. Actually, it started off as a half marathon. We changed it a couple years ago to be a 10-mile race. So there's a lot of history of this event. We come out to the Bronx every year for this race. We are expecting about 13,000 people to run the 10-mile and finish this year. It starts on the Grand Concourse on 165th Street. They run up to Mashula Parkway, where they'll then make a U-turn and run their way back to Yankee Stadium, and they finish right across the street from Yankee Stadium. So a great photo opportunity for everyone and bring them back to where everything really is for the Bronx. They'll get a medal, a T-shirt, a bunch of different amenities, great photo ops and everything. It's just a great way for us to engage with the community throughout the day. Like Vanessa said, we also have about 1,000 kids we're expecting on site to run in a couple of various different races. We also put on a kids youth festival in the park there near 165th Street. So it's just a full day for for everyone to be part of the community there and just take part in the event.
Thank you.
One, sorry about that, but one piece I wanted to also include that not only are we emailing and pushing out as much as information about the race so people know about it, and also the community knows about it overall, we also have a team that goes out and passes out flyers on the race map and all the street closures. So just in case you have a car, or you're waking up early to go to work in the morning, you're aware of that information a week prior to the race. We're very cognizant that even though this is something that we do because we love it and because we think it's great for people to move and come in community, it can be a disturbance to community members due to the fact that we are closing streets, but we try to accommodate in any way we can. For any questions that you might be having about the race or anything that you want to connect with us about, whether it's trying to run the race for the Bronx or any other races that we have, you can also email me at community@nyrr.org. Again, community@nyrr.org, and we will answer any questions you may have there if you don't have any tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it was very thorough, and I'm pleased to hear that how you engage the community, because the community is impacted, even though it's positive, but it does make a change within ability to be able to get around their area. So we appreciate you being sensitive to people's needs and the public's needs and the community needs. Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody on the committee have any questions? Does anybody in the public have any questions about the race?
Approve the SAPO.
Second.
All in favor by saying aye? Sylvia?
Aye.
Okay. We're in favor. It's approved, and we will review this applicant with the board at the next executive board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Move along in our agenda. This meeting is traffic and transportation, but there's specific applications for different things that the traffic and transportation reviews. We're moving along the agenda. The next, we're following. So the next is the MTA update. Is the MTA here?
Yes, we are here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jonathan Flynn. I'm the Assistant Director of Government Communications for New York City Transit. I'm joined by my fellow MTA colleagues and members of the Van Cortlandt Park 242nd Street 8A project team. Today, we're going to be giving you guys an update on this project. I'm going to share my screen, and Kana is going to lead us through the deck. I just sent a request to share my screen.
I think it needs just to be centered a little bit more.
Okay.
For this.
Wonderful. One moment.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay, well, thank you, Jonathan, for the introduction. Thank you to Bronx Community Board 8 for having us this evening. My name is Connor Irvin. I'm here representing MTA Construction and Development. I'm also joined by my colleagues at Government Community Relations. I see Luke DePalma is on, and we have our contractors here. We have our design build contractor, Judlaw, represented by Chris Alexandrovich. And we also have our PMC, our project management team, or sorry, management consultant, which is AECOM. So we're returning with updates on construction here. Some of you may have seen this, former iterations of this presentation, so we'll really be looking at what's new. Accessibility is one of the MTA's core values, and thanks to some of our unprecedented investments in ADA improvements across the system, most notably last capital program's 5.2 billion, only topped by the record 7.1 billion in this current 2025 through 2029 capital program, we've been delivering critical upgrades at record speed, all in line with our commitment of 98% station accessibility by 2055. This station, 242nd Street, is one of 13 in ADA Package 5. And that 13 stations was a record number of stations awarded in an accessibility package, which we awarded in 2023. So we're really excited about it. Okay, next slide, please, Jonathan. Great. So some some quick table setting. So like I said, we're going to make some updates to you and the members of the public who are here. So we have our project scope. We'll flip through that. We have updated renderings to share with you. And we'll look at the former street view and get into why we cited the elevator here, because I know that's a question that the board has posed to us in previous conversations. We'll look at the project footprint, the current MPT setup. We'll go over the milestone schedule, look at where we are, and we'll also flip through accessibility upgrades, as well as the state of good repair work at the station. And there's a lot of state of good repair work. The station is over 100 years old, so we have a lot of work to do. Then we will review the construction impact mitigation, some of those efforts that we've taken. GCR will give a quick report, so I'll turn it back to Jonathan, and then we'll do some Q&A. Great, awesome. So like I said, the station is over 100 years old. It's a historic 1908 terminus station. We're addressing critical state of good repair work, as well as bringing ADA accessibility here for the first time, so all New Yorkers can use the station. For ADA, we have a nice project scope of one new elevator from street to platform. And we're building a new street to platform stair on the west side of Broadway, right there in front of us. So we're just rebuilding that around the elevator. There was a stair there before, we're building it, a new one. For the state of good repair work, we're going to be completely rebuilding the New Island concrete platform. We'll be replacing it with concrete precast panels, and we'll be making repairs to the side platforms. We're repairing this platform steel components, and we've also been making repairs to the station columns. Those need to be repaired. They've been there for a long time. We're replacing the island platform canopy roof, as well as the historic wooden floor in the mezzanine. At all these accessibility projects, you know, when we're here, we're trying to do as much as possible to make the most of everyone's time. So we're also upgrading some station components, such as the fire alarm system. And we have a beautiful arts and design component in this station project. We're going to be installing laminated glass art in the new platform windscreens. Next slide. Oh, okay, so here we have the street view prior to any ADA upgrades. So this is, of course, what it looked like before we started construction. This is a very tight and challenging environment, and I'll get into a little bit more later why we cited this here, but I just want to show this so everyone can appreciate that we cited it at this location because this service road, this no standing service road, allows us to set up MPT, our maintenance and protection of traffic, around our work site with the fewest impacts, not only to the flow of traffic, but also to parking. So this is a service road. It's really it's reserved for authorized vehicles only. And by setting up here, we're actually only taking one legal parking spot. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we'll look at what it will look like after we're done. So we have a few renderings here. This is looking south towards 242nd Street on Broadway. Next one. So this is the intermediate stair landing. This is part of the new staircase we're building. And we have just a view of, you can see the elevator in the distance, and that is that hallway. And this is the replaced wooden floor that you see. Great, thanks. Okay, so more on why we cited this here. So many factors culminated to our final decision to cite it on the west side of Broadway rather on the east side. Number one, when we're giving a new station or a station new ADA access, we really try to see it through the eyes of someone who needs this elevator to access the station, who would never otherwise be able to use the station. So for accessibility, that's the shortest path from the fare box to the elevator landing, and it's just the shortest path of travel for anyone who's in a wheelchair or any mother who has a stroller who might need to use an elevator. And that's much shorter compared to the east side. For elevator constructability, so it is very, very likely that had we built it on the east side, we would need to go through something called parkland alienation, which is a very, very long bureaucratic process, essentially where, because the park is on that side, we would have to make a deal with parks and we would get land that is technically parkland, and then we would have to either pay or basically swap out land to compensate for that land we would be taking in order to build an elevator there. We also looked at a ramp, but it would be very, very long, and this is a historic station that does go into all of the decisions we make with the design. So we wanted to make it a little bit more compact to keep with the nature and the facade of the historic station components. Operation and safety, also this setting the elevator here allows for easy access to the station agent. That's another big factor. And then we can go to the next slide. Okay, great. So this is just another look at the MPT, where we are, and the photo on the right is where we would have changed our plans to. So earlier this year, we started working on some of the bigger pieces of the project. So that's the demolition of the stair and prepping for the elevator. Early in the project, we ran into a few complications with utility relocation. And so we had to make adjustments on the fly. That's why this is a design build project. There are a lot of really great positives and just benefits of that, being able to design it as we're building it, so we don't have to go back to the drawing board and rebid. So what we did was instead of adhering to the picture on the right, which is that square box, we had to keep the MPT layout as it is on the left side. And that allows us to do critical state of good repair work, accessibility work, and also utility relocation. We're really like killing 3 birds with 1 stone all at once, because we had some delays with utility relocation due to some utilities being found sort of outside of the scope of where original drawing showed. So the current setup is the one on the left. And as you can see, it's not that much greater than the one on the right. Next, Jonathan. Okay, great. And this is our construction milestone. So we have the stars to show where we are right now. We finished, of course, setting up MPT installation, utility relocation. So we just did the pile installs for the stair and the elevator, and we have some really cool construction update photos later. We're still working on the excavation and concrete foundations. We have the state of good repair work here in green. So lead abatement for the column repairs and asbestos abatement as well, which is something that we actually did during a previous GO, a general order, which is basically when we have to remove service temporarily to do a little bit more of the work that would not be safe to do around the public. We're doing the platform precast fabrication, which you'll see later, and then we'll be installing that a few months later, probably in the early fall, depending on when we can schedule more GOs. At the same time, we'll be replacing that mezzanine floor I talked about earlier. And after that, we're moving on with the accessibility components. So we're finishing up the elevator. That means installing the glass, working on all the mechanics. We have an elevator machine room that we're also installing. And finally, the stair completion. And really up until the very end, we do all the electrical testing and commissioning. We run a lot of tests to make sure that this elevator will work and be good to go once we leave the site. Next. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to the project manager from Judd Law, Chris. to just talk through some of these photos. I think it's really interesting and just good for members of the public to kind of get a peek behind the blue walls, behind our MPT setup, to see what we're doing. And, it's just really interesting stuff. So I'll pass it on to Chris to walk us through the next 3 slides, just explain what we're seeing.
Evening, everybody. My name is Chris. I'm with Judlow Contracting, and I'm the project manager for this station. So what you see in this picture is part of the component that you guys saw, the staircase. In addition to the staircase, you have the elevator, but what you don't see is behind the elevator, underneath the staircase, is actually a floating elevator machine room. To not increase the size of the station and to not interrupt any more street, the EMR is actually going to be floating above the below the staircase and below the station, so it doesn't take up any room from the actual active sidewalks. So there are a series of pile caps that have to be installed to support the structure. In the early May, we had a pile rig on site which drilled piles for these foundations, and here in the picture, once we excavate down, we expose those piles, and then we actually pour a concrete cap. On the left-hand side is the rebar that gets encased in the concrete, and on the right-hand side, you can see the concrete that is poured, and those bolts will attach to the future staircase structural component of the staircase. You can go to the next slide. In the middle picture, you can see that that's the pile rig on the right-hand side, which gets supported by the excavator. Piles are driven in 5-foot lengths. In this scenario, these piles are rock socketed into the existing bedrock below. So the piles range from 20 to 25 feet, and then those piles would be drilled into the rock and then grouted so that they're solid. On the left-hand side, we took extra precautions whenever close to the building facades to ensure no splatter from drilling or from concrete pouring. It is a very messy operation, so we did everything that we could to ensure that the public was also safe, but also that no storefronts or awnings were damaged during the process. And on the right-hand side, once those piles are completed, we excavate down to begin the forming and rebar. Next slide. So state of good repair is also something that is a big component on the contract. One of the bigger parts is the precast panel work. As of right now, the precast panels are being approved by the MTA and fabrication is underway. The entire center platform will be replaced in its entirety with new precast panels. In addition to that, the existing columns on the platform level will be repaired if there is any degradation or deterioration identified. So that's going to be a large component of our work, which is going to be conducted on weekends during shutdowns. We will be having a crane set up on the street level during those weekends. That'll start Friday midnight or Saturday morning, and that'll continue work until Monday morning, very early morning before the rush. What'll happen is that we will be staging precast panels on the street level, craning them up above so that our crews can remove the old ones and install the new ones. And that'll be taking place starting in September and then continuing on until completion. Also something to note, like Hannah mentioned previously, last month there was a service disruption, a 1 weekend closure. And during that closure, the asbestos found on the precast platforms was abated. And that was done by a asbestos abatement contractor who performs this in a closed environment so that nobody's exposed to any environmental hazards. Thank you. And this is a picture of our actual mock-ups. These mock-ups are constructed in the fabrication plant, which I believe is by Saratoga, and they get inspected by the MTA, confirm it. You can see the slot on the left-hand side is where the columns go. There's intricate work and survey and measuring to confirm that these slots are done correctly and that they match up. You could see the slot on the left-hand side and the slot on the right-hand side on the right picture. And these panels are fabricated, each one unique, so that they fit on top of the existing structure and fit around the columns snug but not too snug, so that the patrons have a perfect walking surface as they traverse down the station. And then construction progress, State of Good Repair has started. This is a multifaceted piece of work. What happens first is we have to go up there and expose the columns. We abate the lead and then we assess the condition of the steel. If the steel is deteriorated and there's levels of deterioration, we then take those measurements, refer back to our designer, and then we submit our shop drawings for approvals prior to going to fabrication. So right now we have exposed those columns, we have confirmed levels of deterioration, performed some abatement on them, and we are in the shop drawing soon to be fabrication process. And once that steel becomes available, we'll have local MPT setups where our iron workers will come in, install the new steel, torque test, inspection. We'll paint 3 coats to protect the steel from the environments, and then backfill accordingly.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. So before we talk a little bit about the impact mitigations on the GCR side, this is just a view looking over at the business side. So when we first constructed the MPT, these signs were installed in December, and then based on community feedback, we installed 3 more signs for 3 additional businesses bordering the work zone who expressed interest. You can go next. Okay, and some other impact mitigations that we have implemented. So at all times, we adhere to DEP mandated noise levels during construction. We really limit the jackhammering and other noisy work when we're opening up the sidewalk, as well as using drills to get through the rock bed, although that's not as noisy because the layers of dirt dampen most of the sound. With rerouting traffic, as Chris was talking about with the State of Good Repair project, specifically the precast concrete panels that we'll be using to completely rebuild the platform, we will use flaggers when that happens. That will happen much farther down the road in the fall, but we have thought out a really comprehensive traffic plan for sidewalk, crosswalk, and bus stop access. So on all of these projects, DOT requires that we have a crosswalk alternative if we need to occupy an area and close it for the work site. So there will always be crosswalks that are open. And the bus stop for the Bronx 9 bus route is just shifted a little bit down the block, closer towards 242nd Street. I'm sure many of you have seen that. And then the closures again, so we require a few GOs in this project to do mostly the big State of Good Repair work that is involved here. And during the station closures, there will be shuttle bus service provided, and Jonathan will send out construction advisories far in advance so that everyone can just plan their trip, plan their weekend a little bit better. Great.
Thank you.
So now I will turn it over to Jonathan.
Yep, thank you, Kana. So now I'm going to talk about a little bit about the community outreach we have done. We have actively been engaging with local businesses, listening to their feedback, and taking direct action to address their concerns. Before the project began, we did storefront outreach. In October, we had outreach calls with local businesses affected by the MPT. In January, we did a site visit with local businesses as well, so we could give them a sense of what they can expect in the MPT. We have also, in March, we provided a construction update to elected officials and the community board. Some of the actions we have taken is every business has an open for business banner on the MPT, so customers know they are open for business, and also that they are able to accept deliveries. We have also expanded sidewalk access from 5 feet to over 6 feet to improve pedestrian flow and provide better access to sellers for business owners. We have also installed lighting to enhance visibility and safety, ensuring the walkway is fully illuminated during dark hours. We also have a dedicated hotline and email for businesses and community stakeholders to report any issues they have and receive a timely update from our team. Now we're going to open the floor up to questions.
Does anybody on the committee have a question?
Thank you so much for your presentation. Based on your earlier point in referencing how individuals in the community who require or who need ADA accessibility to the station, I'm familiar a bit with the MTA advisory work in terms of individuals who have disabilities really going through stations to review the curb cuts, to look at the gaps in between, the platform and the train. And I'm even thinking about this station where it does feel, while there is that middle platform, it does feel very congested with columns, and perhaps there used to be some benches there and that sort of thing. But I'm wondering, for people who really, need accessibility, we want them to be able to, it's great to finally have this accessibility at 242nd Street or soon to be. But, to really make it real for people who might be taking the bus in or who are paratransit, like seeing how it really will work for them and making sure that this investment really does what we intended to do. Do you all consult with individuals in the community or do like walkthroughs just to be sure that everything is going according to plan?
Sorry, are you asking for walkthroughs with like disability advocates? I'm just clarify what the actual ask is for me, sorry.
Yes. Do you ask disability advocates to walk through sites to ensure that the physical location they're, from transit, either they're getting out of someone's car or they're coming, paratransit is dropping them off perhaps at the station, or they're getting off of a bus, making sure that we have the appropriate curb cuts so that they can access the elevator. And then once they're on the platform, ensuring that they're actually able to get around the obstacles on the platform, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so we do this during the planning phase, when we're designing. Also our accessibility department at the MTA, our chief accessibility officer, who is himself in a wheelchair, they also are part of the design when we're bidding it out. So they do review it at some point.
In addition, there are contractual requirements that we have to maintain. So for example, one thing we don't mention is that the flooring inside the mezzanine is going to be replaced so that it is flush and smooth. There's also ADA guidelines for slope requirements, what's allowable and what isn't. And that's also thoroughly inspected by the MTA inspectors during that commissioning testing program. And then also that curb cut in front of the staircase, as well as around the elevator, has to maintain specific ADA guidelines. For example, on any true pedestrian ramp, the 48 inches across has to have a detectable warning strip with less than a 1 to 12 slope. Flare outs can only be 1 on 12, and then you have your rise onto your curbs. So there's a very thorough guidelines that are enforced between state regulation, federal regulation in regards to ADA. So on the station level, you'll have those tactiles with the illuminescent strip on it to ensure that people hard of vision will see it. Unfortunately, columns and such things are not able to be replaced because that would be a very extensive structural change to the station, which would take years. But their ADA does specify specific widths for wheelchair ability to traverse on the platform and pass, and all those widths are maintained.
Anybody else on the committee have a question? Anybody in the community have a question? Yes. Wait, the gentleman here?
Looked like they were closing 2 lanes southbound Broadway for, I think, weekend or a weekend.
Hold on 1 second. Sir.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. I just wanted to clarify, it looked like you were closing southbound Broadway or 2 lanes of southbound Broadway in September, and I couldn't tell if that was just one weekend.
It will be a series of weekends, a month apart.
I'm sorry, can you speak a little bit louder?
It will be a series of weekends, a month apart.
What is this series? 2, 3, 4, 5?
Approximately 10.
10. Okay, so that's a lot of weekends. That's a very busy area, especially on weekends, especially in September, especially with all of the track meets and all the other activities going on in Van Cortlandt Park. Have you guys considered that in your timing?
To minimize the impacts to the community.
I can't hear you. Can you please speak up?
Okay. To minimize the impacts, instead of shutting it down for 10 consecutive weeks, spreading them out to once a month is an attempt to minimize the constant impacts to the park and activities, or specifically sporting events within a season.
This is also DOT, I mean, it will be when we do it, DOT permitted work, and they're really the experts in terms of traffic flow, mitigating impacts, stuff like that. So, you know, we follow all of their guidelines. They do a lot of review. They're very conservative in their review, I would say. So, you know, everything is permitted according to DOT.
I'm sorry, you cleared this with NYC DOT, the 10 weekends?
So DOT reviews all of our permits, and they're the ones to give us the green light. So it's coming, it's in the fall, but so we're still in talks with them, but you know, we really do the permitting as we go. That's another reason that you know, this is a design build project. It's one of the pros here. So as we get those permits, yes, it will be from DOT, and they will have made all of their comments about where we can and cannot set up, etc.
So you're here at the community board, and I know one of the things are to kind of throw things at you that are unique to the area. In September, in that area, you have a lot of schools, both colleges, high schools, and even grammar schools who are going to Van Cortlandt Park and using that. And especially in the weekends, and to close 2 southbound traffics in that area might cause a lot of turmoil. Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. There's a gentleman here in the front that had a question also.
This speaks directly to the delays in the project plan. The owners of those businesses affected since the project started have been inured tremendously in their businesses. Is there any mitigation of the construction project in the works to reparate, you know, the damages that these businesses have suffered in terms of the businesses lost?
Yeah, I can't speak about the business's loss. I'm not sure about that. I think it would have to be substantiated as well. But in terms of the schedule, one of those slides I showed you where we had like sort of comparison of what we're doing now because we ran into an unexpected, really unforeseen utility condition that was not on maps that we consult for design. And on the right, it was what we would have done had that, you know, really unforeseen circumstance not arisen. So we're doing the best we can. We're making up time by working on all 3 aspects at once. So that's very common in construction projects, and especially in these packages where we have these construction professionals who are used to problems popping up, and they're very quick and very smart to adapting to those problems because they are responsible ultimately for keeping to the construction schedule. And sometimes that means working double shifts. And in this case, it means being a little bit more creative with our MPT setup so we can kill 3 birds with 1 stone.
We've also had multiple lunches where we take out the entire project team, but also the entire labor staff and subcontractors, and we eat at the local businesses. We've been to the pizzeria. We've done 1 lunch, I believe, for the most recent holiday at the deli. So, you know, when we can, we also try to specifically eat at these locations and for everyone to ensure that, you know, we can do whatever we can to eat locally, as we do have a lot of staff coming in and out.
I realize that there are overruns and construction delays, but the fact that these businesses have been inured and some of those businesses have had to close, it might be in good fellowship with these businesses going forward, especially with the city being involved in a project for the MTA, that some of those things that can be done to help inure those businesses is maybe to give them some kind of a tax abatement. I mean, it's only fair that they should not be at loss for a project that took so much delays.
That would be a city question, so I'm sure that the city would entertain that recommendation.
We're just gonna take one more question, and then we really need to move on our agenda.
I know that the community board raised some objections to using the west side of Broadway at all. To my mind, besides the damage to the businesses, to my mind, I can't for the life of me figure out why this elevator is going to be on the west side of Broadway, forcing wheeled users, wheelchairs, walkers, strollers, and golfers who have pull carts to go down on the west side of Broadway, go up to get up a block and a half away to the traffic light there, to cross over to the east side of Broadway to get into the park. And I think they will be the vast majority of the users. I don't understand why this is not on the east side of Broadway. And I appreciate if you would go back to about slide number 10, where you try to explain the use of the west side. It didn't make particularly the first item, it didn't make sense to me, but I know that there's time and expense associated with change, but this is going to be in place for 50, 75, 100 years and have an impact on the community and the users. And I think serious consideration should be made now to fix this, do this the right way on the east side of Broadway. So I'd appreciate your explanation of slide number 9 or 10.
Okay, sure. I'll pull it up really quick. Hold on for myself so I can answer your
If you don't
question.
mind, I'll just jump in really quick. One of the things that you guys don't take into consideration is what's in the ground. And one of those big impacts is that there is a high pressure 20-inch gas main that is on the east side of Broadway. Any excavation in that area, any piles, anything in that area, especially since the high pressure gas main is cast iron, would be a very, very long lead time. We'd be ripping apart a large section of the park just to replace it, because cast iron, as you know, is very brittle, and excavations of depth of such as an elevator shaft would require a significant impact. In addition to that, there is also 2 water mains there, a 12-inch and a 20-inch. So there is a lot of things underground that aren't taken into consideration. A high pressure gas main would be a very long lead time as far as construction. It cannot be done during the winter months, as a lot of people do use the gas for heat. And then just overall, there are embargoes related to it and a very, very high cost and huge impact to the public. So those are just the underground things that nobody really sees. And that is another reason why the west side was chosen, because there was no gas impacts and minimal electrical relocations and no water impacts.
Yes, I understand how you're saying that this might take weeks or months of more work.
Years. A high pressure gas main would be years,
Yeah.
because it distributes to the entire community.
Christopher, that it would take weeks or months to do this, but this will be in place and used by the community for 50 or 100 years. Now, kindly explain to me, the elevator location provides 2 stops from street directly to the platform level. I don't quite understand that.
I mean, there's 2 stops. It goes from the street directly to the platform. I don't know.
Okay, and how would that be different on the east side of Broadway?
No, I mean, it would be the same. It would
Oh,
also
okay,
be, it would be street to platform. This is just,
Okay.
just outlining what we're doing. Like I
That's
said,
not
the
an
station
advantage.
agent, the agent booth, very important that they have direct access to the elevator. It's really helpful for customer just service. People will come up and have questions, and we want to make sure that this is the best station environment improvement for all of our riders and customers. What's the other part of your question? Hold on.
Go back to the slide, please. I mean,
Yeah, so
your first point, excuse me, your first point does not provide an advantage, because I guess almost all elevators, wherever possible, are two-stop, east side and the west side.
Sure, yeah,
so
you're
go
right.
back
That
to
is
the
not
right
an advantage
slide.
unique to the west side. You're correct about that.
Okay.
It is, the second point is
Can we
true,
just
though.
wrap
It's the
this up?
shorter
Because
path.
I also want to address, there are people that are online that may have questions and we want to move along on the agenda.
I'm just
One
waiting
more,
for this
one more
question.
minute.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Kindly
Okay.
go back to the slide.
Great. So to your, the second bullet that we shared, there's a shorter path from the fair to, so where you get from the elevator to actual service, to the platform. And that's very important. Like I said, we have our accessibility team review these designs. We have our chief accessibility officer. He's in a wheelchair himself. I think that I would probably take his word. I'm not in a wheelchair. So, they do review that. And like Chris said, there's a lot of ADA codes that go into the design of this project that, culminated to our decision to keep it on the west side. In addition, I want to talk a little bit about the bureaucracy and the paperwork with parkland alienations. These take a long time, and time is money on these projects. So not only are you doing more review, you have to go back and forth with Parks Department. You have to do a city council review and approval and a state review and approval. That takes a long time. And like Chris said, with reconstructing that gas main, this is a benefit to the taxpayer, because when we extend the length of this project in the design, like we would purposely be adding like another year and a half, that costs money, and we're trying to cut that down.
I understand that. I just realized that the shorter path to the fair line could easily be accommodated by moving the fair line.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. Is there anybody online that had their hand up that have a question? And if you can please provide the board office with your slides from your presentation, please. And thank you for presenting. And you will be receiving some type of letter from the traffic and transportation with the questions that of concern from the community. Mr. Perez, DOT, thank you for waiting. We have a follow-up presentation on Bailey Avenue, Van Cortlandt Park South, west to 25th Street, corridor safety improvement with bike lanes.
My name is Anthony Perez. We're going to be setting up a presentation in a second, but I'll take a minute to give a quick introduction to our project and why we're here today.
Yeah.
Again, my name is Anthony Perez, and I'm the Bronx Borough Commissioner for the City Department of Transportation. I actually grew up in this very neighborhood, at 225th Street and exterior. My mom still lives there now. I spent most of my life with my bedroom window facing Bailey Avenue. I'm very familiar with the area, and I come here, I mentioned this at the last meeting. We were here in April. We came back to the May Executive Committee meeting. We submitted a 7-page document answering all the questions that came up at the meeting. And after the meeting, we've now here back for this June meeting to discuss projects further and answer any other questions. But what I mentioned then was that this ultimately is a safety project. When I look about the improvements that we're talking about here, it's about saving lives. I think about my 2-year-old daughter and crossing the street with her in a stroller. I think about my mother, who's a senior citizen, who takes a little longer to cross the street. These improvements will make it better for pedestrians to get across, the people that live here, the people that work here, the people that have business here. This will also make it safer for drivers too, because we're including left turn bays and other improvements that will make traffic flow much more smoother. And obviously, it also has the connection for the bike connection into the park. And that is part of the larger Harlem River Greenway initiative that will eventually connect Randall's Island all the way in the South Bronx, all the way up into Van Cortlandt Park. And actually, once it connects to Van Cortlandt Park and connects to all those trails up into Westchester, you could literally ride your bike from Randall's Island all the way to Canada once you make that full connection. So these are improvements that will be great for all different users of the street. And these improvements were specific block by block that were methodical and surgically created to address the needs of each of those different sections. Without further ado, I want to pass it over to Nathan, who will lead a presentation. I'm also here joined by Chris Brunson from the Research Implementation and Safety Unit. And we also have Holly Malone in the back from our team in the Bronx. And I'm going to be over here to help answer questions after the presentation.
Thanks, Anthony. So I'll just say next slide. So hi, everyone. My name is Nathan Albert. I am a project manager at New York City DOT's Research Implementation and Safety team. We focus on corridors and intersections across the city where there are high rates of crashes and injuries. Just to start, I'm going to go over the history of outreach on this project. We started to think about this project many years ago, and I'll go into sort of the genesis of where this all came from. But as this project started to come into clear view for DOT, we started to include it in a number of the Harlem River Greenway outreach events that took place across the West Bronx from March 2024 to February 2025. There were 9 of those in person and virtual. Earlier this year, from March to April, the Harlem River Greenway draft plan was released, which, as Anthony was describing, went over a full path from Van Cortlandt Park to Randall's Island. That included a cross-section of this project. So as our project became a little bit clearer, we added more of it in these outreach open houses in March and April. In April, we held presentations with the council members, assembly members, state senators, and the borough president for this district. Or rather for the extent of the corridor on Bailey Avenue. And on April 17th, we gave this presentation to the CB8 Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. Later in May, we met with the Bronx CB8 Executive Committee, where we responded to a number of questions and comments that they had for us about this project. We shared extensive feedback with the board, detailing our feedback, our responses to their questions. Later in May, our What's Happening Here construction notice was published on our website. It's been posted across the corridor on Bailey Avenue, and it's been released to elected officials as well. And then today is June 4th. Here's our final informational presentation about this to the June CB8 Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. Next slide, thank you. So this is the project timeline for construction. Later this month, concrete construction will begin at 4 intersections: West 230th Street, West 233rd Street, West 234th Street, West 238th Street, and then Van Cortlandt Park South is part of a larger project that goes into the park that actually was first presented to the community last year. Bailey Avenue will also be resurfaced. That resurfacing is scheduled for late summer. And following the resurfacing, markings and vertical elements will be implemented, and the full project should be completed by fall 2025. Next slide. So this is the project location. It's Bailey Avenue from Van Cortlandt Park South to West 225th Street. It's 1.1 miles. And it's adjacent to the major Deegan Expressway. It's a block from the 1 train on Broadway. There's a mix of uses along the corridor. There's some residential, there's some commercial, there's some light industrial uses, and also some parks between 233rd and 234th Street. There are 2 bus routes that use Bailey Avenue north of West 230th Street, and it's also a marked local truck route. Next slide. So we first started to look at this project in response to community requests. As you can see here, Community Board 8 made a request to DOT regarding safety at the intersection of Bailey Avenue and West 230th Street. We also received a number of constituent requests about pedestrian safety, cyclist safety, and speeding on the corridor. And if you can go to the next slide, this is borne out in the data. So this is really, really why we're here. And I want to reinforce the data that's on this slide, because to me, this is the most important slide in the presentation. Between 2020 and 2024, in those 5 years, 179 people have been injured on this 1 mile corridor of Bailey Avenue. And there were 18 severe injuries and 2 fatalities. The reason why we highlight these severe injuries and fatalities is we call it a DOT KSI, killed or severely injured. This is a shorthand for us to know where we're going to dedicate our resources. And the number of KSI incidents, there's 20, 18 severe injuries and 2 fatalities. This is why we've been focusing on Bailey Avenue, because this is an abnormally high number of crashes with severe injuries and fatalities that change people's lives and change families' lives. And I'll just call out that 238th, 230th, and 225th Street are our most problematic locations. As you can imagine, those are some of the busiest intersections with a lot of pedestrian activity, a lot of commercial activity, et cetera. Next slide. We looked into the crash data under the hood to look at how these crashes were occurring. We have police crash data for all the crashes on the corridor. And the most common pedestrian injuries were drivers failing to yield. So these were pedestrians that were crossing with the right of way in the crosswalk. They were doing the right thing, and they were still hit by a car that was supposed to yield to them in the crosswalk. So 43% of the pedestrian injuries occurred when drivers failed to yield to them in the crosswalk. The most common driver injuries, of which there are many, are rear end or right angle crashes, which indicate high rates of speeding and aggressive driving, which is obvious if you just sort of spend any time on the corridor. And as I said earlier, this rate of severe injuries puts it in the top 10% of the most dangerous streets in the Bronx. Next slide, thanks. So this is a cross section of the corridor. The left side is sort of cut off, I'm not sure why, but it's in general, there's some areas that it's a little different, but in general, we have a 60-foot cross section of Bailey Avenue with 2 moving lanes in either direction and a parking lane along the curb in either direction. We also have several very long blocks. This is because the west side of Bailey Avenue is something we call an edge condition, where we're adjacent to the Major Deegan for many of those blocks. So those long blocks further encourage speeding because there's like nothing in between, 225th and 230th Street. It's just a straightaway. So there's opportunities for further speeding along those edge conditions. And then at intersections, we have at minimum, sometimes larger than 60 feet for pedestrians to cross. So there's very wide crossing distances, and we also have no dedicated space for cyclists. Next slide. Going further into the existing conditions. So for drivers, we see excess capacity. These 2 travel lanes are often not full, and we have speeding, double parking, swerving, and just generally unpredictable behavior along the corridor. As we said earlier, this high rate of speeding leads to a high rate of rear end and right angle crashes and injuries. And then we see this issue at basically every intersection on the corridor. There are no turn bays for left turning vehicles. And this creates pressure if you're a vehicle that's in the left lane, you want to make a left turn, and there's a car behind you that just wants to go straight, but they're in the left lane. They're putting pressure on you to do something erratic, something quick, and that's why we see some of these crashes. So it's dangerous for pedestrians and drivers who are trying to navigate this, these intersections where you have speeding cars and a lot of swerving and unpredictability. And again, the wide intersections encourage fast turns. So again, there's nothing really preventing drivers from taking a sort of highway-like turn onto Bailey Avenue, coming off the highway maybe. And that's why we see some of these failure to yield turning injuries for pedestrians. Next slide. For pedestrians, there's long crossing distances everywhere, and particularly adjacent to the 1 train, we see high pedestrian volumes. We took counts of pedestrians at every intersection, and we saw the highest numbers of pedestrians at 238th, 231st, and 225th Streets. In a number of cases, these intersections are not like right angles, they're misaligned, they're a little bit off, so the turns are kind of shallow, and the turns can be made very quickly, which is again endangers pedestrians. As we said earlier, 43% of the injuries on this corridor are due to failure to yield. And in a couple of locations, including this one at West 230th Street along the west side of the curb, we're missing crosswalks for pedestrians. This happens in a few locations, but as you can see, pedestrians still do this in a quite unsafe manner. This happens also at 234th Street right over here. There's a couple of slip lanes that don't have crosswalks across them. Next slide. And then for cyclists, despite no dedicated space for bicycles, approximately 150 cyclists per day use Bailey Avenue. Many of them are going towards Van Cortlandt Park, to the north, to Broadway Bridge, to the south to get to Manhattan. And the lack of dedicated roadway space leads to cyclists sharing travel lanes with the fast-moving vehicles, buses, trucks, and the swerving and the double parked cars that we've just been discussing earlier, which is just an unsafe situation. Next slide. This is a bike map of the Bronx, and you can see there are no bike lanes in Kingsbridge and Kingsbridge Heights. So there's a gap in the network that's also in the current condition. Next slide. So this is the future condition on Bailey Avenue. We're planning to remove a travel lane in either direction, create this wide flush median, and add turn bays at every intersection to encourage safer driving speeds, safer turns, and better vehicle organization. In the excess space on the west curb, there will be a two-way parking protected bike lane to build a safe cycling connection on Bailey Avenue. At all feasible locations along the corridor, there will be new pedestrian islands, both in concrete and in paint, to shorten crossing distances, to slow down vehicles making turns onto Bailey Avenue. And in a couple of locations, for the southbound BX10 bus, we're going to be adding or enhancing bus boarding islands to improve rider accessibility and bus service so they can more quickly have riders either board or get off the bus. Next slide. I just want to mention that we've done studies at DOT about designs like this one. In 2022, there was a pretty extensive study about these projects that DOT has been pursuing around the city for a number of years now. So we have a lot of good data about the safety benefits of it. And we see that for all users, not just cyclists, but pedestrians and drivers, we see a nearly 15% injury reduction, but an 18% reduction of those KSI, killed or severely injured injuries. And I just want to call out the kind of major piece of data from this study that we want to highlight is that for senior pedestrians, these types of projects result in a nearly 40% reduction of severe injuries and fatalities. So we see extremely meaningful and significant benefits for all road users when we install protected bike lanes, such as the one we're planning to do so on Bailey Avenue. Next slide, thank you. So I'll go through every intersection. Every intersection is different, as Anthony mentioned. And then I'll start from the north, head to the south, and then we'll be done. I can take some questions. So starting at Van Cortlandt Park South, this is a project that's more extensive, that goes into the park. It's something DOT has been looking at for a bit longer. So I'm not going to go into all of this. This is something that's actually been presented to the board a number of times, but I'll just describe what's going on at this intersection and how it relates to our project. So starting on the east side of the intersection, we actually installed a pedestrian island on the southeast corner last year. So that's in place already, this island right there. But in addition, the sidewalks are going to be expanded all along the north leg of the intersection. There will be a new bike path that connects to the rest of the bike trail in farther north in Van Cortlandt Park, creating that connection. This northbound right turn will be converted into a stop sign to improve traffic flow if you're going north onto eastbound Van Cortlandt Park Avenue. But on the west side of the intersection, on the southwest side of the intersection, we are going to be closing this slip lane for eastbound vehicles that want to make a right turn to go south on Bailey Avenue. In its place, we're going to be adding a new right turn bay which will actually overcompensate for that reduction in capacity and keep traffic flow moving very, very well. But in this new area, we're going to be expanding the BX10 bus stop for southbound BX10 buses. This will be a shared space that connects pedestrians and cyclists to the park. And then it'll deposit out onto this new west curb bike lane on Bailey Avenue. Next slide. Heading south to West 238th Street, the big change here is there will be a new bus boarding island for southbound BX10 buses. This, as I said earlier, improves accessibility for riders using the BX10 bus. They get to wait and the bus pulls right up to them. And it removes the conflict between cyclists and bus riders and also calms the turns for vehicles making the right onto westbound 238th Street. We're also going to be adding a new left turn bay for southbound vehicles on Bailey Avenue that will go east onto West 238th Street. And for northbound vehicles on Bailey Avenue, there will be a new left turn bay and a new protected left turn signal so that they can make that turn without any conflict to pedestrians or cyclists. Next slide. Okay, this is right outside our building right now. This is West 233rd and West 234th Street. So I'm going to go through it from north to south. So this slip lane right here, right outside, will be closed. There's actually no legal movement through it because West 234th Street goes west. So we're just going to close it with concrete so that pedestrians can continue north-south without really any conflict with vehicles at all. We're also on the west side going to be installing 2 new large pedestrian islands. These will calm turns, reduce conflict with vehicles, and protect the cyclists using the new bike lane along the west curb. For northbound vehicles, there will be a new left turn bay and a new left turning signal that will allow them to make turns without conflicts to pedestrians or cyclists. And the pedestrians and cyclists will now connect to a new significantly expanded bus boarding island at West 233rd Street. The dotted red line is the current outline of the bus boarding island at West 233rd Street. It's going to be basically doubled in size, and that will be a shared space for both the cyclists, the pedestrians, and the bus riders to use. There'll be extensive space for them, and the bike lane will then continue farther south on south of West 233rd Street. We're also, as you can see, going to add a new painted curb extension at West 233rd Street. Again, calming turns, reducing crossing distance for pedestrians. And I also want to call out when we made this presentation in April, and then when we came back in May, there were concerns from the community about drainage and the amount of green space on this block. And given that we're going to be adding a bit of concrete to this block, there were questions about how much we could do to mitigate that. We're actively looking into planting the maximum number of trees possible on these new concrete elements. So we've taken those concerns into account, and we're pursuing the most green space possible that's feasible based on the utilities underground on this block. Next slide. Thank you. So West 231st Street, there's going to be a painted pedestrian island, again, calming vehicle turns, reducing crossing distance for pedestrians, protecting the cyclists that are using this west curb. And then for northbound vehicles, there will be a new left turn bay and a new left turning signal. Again, allowing those vehicles to make that turn with no conflict to pedestrians or cyclists. I also want to call out this design here where there's a driveway. This exists across the corridor for Bailey Avenue, where there are driveways along the west curb. We will be maintaining access to all of those driveways with designs such as this one, so that visibility and access is always maintained. Next slide. Thanks. So this is the West 230th Street and Albany Crescent. This is split into 2 slides because there's a lot going on here. This is one of the more confusing parts of the intersection of the corridor for all users. So we're proposing a lot here. So the bike lane will continue south on the west curb of Bailey Avenue, and it will lead into a new concrete curb extension at West 230th Street, where cyclists and pedestrians will board the curb, which will be expanded slightly into the Siren Slope Park. The sidewalk there is going to be expanded a little bit beyond where it currently is on the north curb at West 230th Street. And they will then make this two-part crossing with a new concrete pedestrian island in the middle of West 230th Street and a new substantially large curb extension on the south curb of West 230th Street. These elements will calm turns dramatically. What we currently see at this intersection are cars that are getting off the Major Deegan, coming onto Bailey Avenue, and continuing to drive at highway speeds on a local street where pedestrians are crossing, where you have families crossing the street. So these elements are going to slow those cars down so that they can make turns where they can yield to pedestrians. And I think that's everything for this slide. Next slide. We'll also call out that for northbound vehicles on Bailey Avenue making the left turn onto West 230th Street, there will be a new left turning bay. We're going to be adding a new painted curb extension on the east curb of Bailey and West 230th Street, further shortening that crossing distance by about 33%. By about 20 feet. So that's getting pedestrians out of the street more quickly, reducing the conflict that they might have with cars. And, you know, we see this in the data. That's what saves lives. That's what prevents injuries. We also have a northbound left turn bay at Albany Crescent and a left turning signal, again, protecting the drivers and the pedestrians and the cyclists. So they're all in their own phases. There's no conflict for those left turning vehicles. And one more thing, sorry, for southbound vehicles, it's a bit cut off, but there will also be a left turn bay to get onto Albany Crescent. So again, every turn has a left turn bay right now. Currently, there is no such thing. Next slide. And then finally, West 225th Street, we're adding 2 new turn bays to promote organized traffic flow, both left and right turns here at 225th Street. We're going to be adding new painted curb extensions along the bridge there over the Major Deegan, painted curb extensions and median tip extensions, again, significantly reducing pedestrian crossing distance and calming all of the turns off of that kind of outrageously busy intersection. And there's a school on the southeast corner of that intersection, so we need to do something there. South of the intersection, you can see that this kind of shades out a bit. I just want to note that we are considering extending this design south of West 25th Street for future implementation seasons. Next slide. So parking impacts. So on the 1.1 mile corridor, each block was evaluated to determine parking impacts, and we've estimated that approximately 46 spots will be repurposed. And I just want to call out the reasons for this repurposed parking. At intersections, as we went through the presentation earlier, in order to have these safety benefits that calm turns, that slow turns down, that create more visibility, we need to install designs like this one or like this one, where you have to pull a spot or two out and replace it with a painted pedestrian island or a turn calming treatment like Quick Curb over there. These treatments encourage slower turns, and they address the types of crashes that we see in the data all along Bailey Avenue. These new pedestrian islands and curb extensions, they create shorter and safer crossing distances for pedestrians. And then also we needed to repurpose some spots for turn bays, again, to make safer vehicle turns, improve traffic flow, and reduce the conflicts between vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. Next slide. Just the last few slides here, I just want to call out the connections. So in that earlier slide, there was a gap in the bike network. This is adding a new protected bike path through Kingsbridge. It's going to connect to that ongoing project to the north at Van Cortlandt Park South that connects it to the Empire State Trail and Canada, like Anthony was saying earlier. And then on the south part of this at 225th Street, I want to note that we are looking at a potential future connection along 225th Street to Broadway Bridge, as well as a potential future connection to the south further along Bailey Avenue. And I do want to call out a project that may be on your radar. It's a future capital project on the corridor for the Tibbetts Brook Greenway along the Major Deegan on the west side. This is a longer term project that Parks and DEP is working on. And this project will promote the connectivity to that new greenway in the future, although that's, you know, probably 5 years away as far as I understand. Next slide. We mentioned the Harlem River Greenway earlier. I just want to mention it again. Since 2022, DOT has held over 30 public workshops and community events to collect feedback on this proposal that connects Van Cortlandt Park to Randall's Island. And it will create a new greenway to provide a new, convenient, safe recreation and commuting option. There, as you can see in this slide, there's this purple, that's the on-street part of it where we can use our resources as DOT to create this greenway. The orange are some more longer term projects like that Tibbetts Brook Capital project, but the purple are things that we can do on street more quickly using in-house resources. And Bailey Avenue is the first major northernmost part of this Harlem River Greenway project. Next slide. We mentioned all of the outreach that we did for the Harlem River Greenway. I just want to say that when we did these community events for Harlem River Greenway, we heard a lot about Bailey Avenue, a lot of things that we talked about today. People concerned about safety, people concerned about pedestrian safety, not just cyclist safety, and people recognizing the opportunity that we have to transform this corridor and really address the concerns about pedestrian and driver safely while also creating this new connectivity to the greenway and to the parks. Next slide. So
What was the last slide?
Excuse me? In summary, these are the project benefits. We have a lane reduction on Bailey Avenue that organizes the roadway, calms traffic, and new turn bays and turn signals to promote predictable and safer vehicle behavior. At every intersection, as we went through, there are substantial pedestrian safety improvements that will be experienced by all users. That they will reduce conflict points with drivers, increase visibility, and shorten the crossing distance. There's going to be a new protected bike lane, 1.1 miles in both directions. That's 2.2 miles of dedicated space for cyclists through Kingsbridge and Kingsbridge Heights, providing safe connections to Van Cortlandt Park and other neighborhood destinations. And there are new bus service and accessibility improvements for the southbound BX10. This is an example of a somewhat similar project that we installed on Garrettson Avenue in Brooklyn several years ago, where you could see the bike improvements, the bus improvements, and the traffic calming improvements as well. Next slide. And just to summarize, we showed this at the beginning of the presentation. Here is the construction timeline. We'll be beginning later this month at those intersections 230, 233, 234, and 238th. And that roadway resurfacing will take place later in the summer with the new markings and vertical elements to be installed by the fall. That is it. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
So we're gonna have people that signed up to speak. I'm gonna go by the list, but we're gonna go with board members first. And I just wanna thank you for coming out and presenting again. However, I have received several letters from businesses, from community leaders, from homeowners, from people that live in this community, and they're upset and they're concerned because things, as simple things as businesses being affected because there's no parking. Disruption of businesses on 234th Street. There's a gentleman that owns an auto repair business. People's ability to be picked up, dropped off with accessoride, ambulance services. Simple thing is Amazon packages, because there's going to be only one lane. And you're forcing people again, you want to calm things, but in actuality, you're causing people to have more anxiety because it's going to be one lane and there's going to be more double parking. There's going to be, issues such as that. There are people coming off the highway. We understand there are people that follow rules and there are people that don't follow the rules. Is it possible to have speed bumps as opposed to eliminating a whole entire lane on both sides? So is the plan really realistic in preventing traffic jams and really causing safety? Because it's behavior. So these are some of the concerns. I want the public to also to relay their concerns, but I can tell you they're elderly, they're senior citizens that live on Bailey Avenue that are concerned that they don't feel that this plan is going to be safe for them. 46 parking spots is a huge impact to businesses. I understand that we want to have bicycles, but we want to have businesses. We don't want to have a desert of no businesses. Okay, they're paying taxes, they're paying into the system. Let's be fair about this and find another way to work this as opposed to making it difficult for homeowners, businesses to be able to function. I have about 50 letters. I don't want to read them all, but I'm just going to pass the mic to the committee members. Hold on a second. The committee members, and then we're going to go to the public. You have anything?
I was just gonna say, from the last presentation, thank you for making the adjustments to the right lane at Van Cortlandt Park South. One of the issues that I brought up at that time is still the intersection of 225th where cars are coming off the Deegan. And I still do feel like it's the same situation in which cars are pinched when they are coming off the Deegan heading northbound and they take that right onto 230th Street. I still think as though we're still going to be in that same predicament and cars are rushing through that intersection. And now we are funneling pedestrians and cyclists through that lane. And it does feel like that's going to be a bottleneck right there and a risky one at that. Personally, I'm excited about having some bike lanes that go up and down Bailey that go into Van Cortlandt. I know that I don't know how many people here tonight ride bikes in the community, but I certainly do, and I'm excited about what's ahead and the opportunity to explore our neighborhoods on a bike.
I just want to make a quick announcement. Those that are on Zoom, if you could raise your hand if you would like to ask any questions with the raise hand icon. It's on Zoom.
First off, thank you for the presentation and going through this again in detail. And I would like to dovetail off of our fellow board members. Thank you for considering some of the things that we discussed at that last meeting. It is appreciated. I would just like to say that I know when I first moved to New York, one of the streets that terrified me was Bailey Avenue. And I think while undoubtedly something should be done, I think we've all dealt with navigating coming off the Deegan and trying to figure out how you're going to make it across the street. The concerns with the crosswalks and the like. I feel like I echo a lot of the concerns of many of the community where I'm not sure that this is the right solution.
Okay, so is Adrian Marquise here?
Give you a mic. No, people on Zoom need to hear it. Give him the mic.
And you're gonna have 2 minutes to speak.
Yeah, I've been living on Bailey Avenue for at least 36 years now. I'm a homeowner there. 36 years ago, everything was nice here. As time has passed, traffic has gotten worse and worse and more atrocious as the days go by. Anytime there's an accident on a major Deegan, northbound, our street is jammed up from Fordham all the way to the entrance of the major Deegan. That gentleman over there failed to mention that we have a lot of tractor trailer traffic coming onto Bailey Avenue as well. and they use that little turn where that little island is. Take away that turn, and now that tractor trailer has to make a real wide turn into oncoming eastbound traffic to make the turn onto Bailey. What's gonna happen with that? People can get hurt. We need to find a better way. You spoke about a greenway. I think that's an excellent idea. It ends inside Grand Cortlandt Park. There's no reason why they shouldn't have taken it down further years ago. They just didn't. Maybe you can do it now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Can we all?
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna piggyback off the gentleman when speaking about the Greenway, because I know DOT is connected with parks and all that. I want to start off with talking about Tibbetts Brook. So I know the PM spoke about that being constructed. I also want you all to consider Tibbetts Tail. I feel like a lot of time renovations, if it comes to parks or if it comes to greenways like that, we consider the west side a lot, but we don't consider the east. Tibbetts Tail is the end of Bailey Playground, that greenway that runs to 238th Street. So we need to find a nature way for there as well on the side of the Major Deegan. You know, let's give a little love to this side. In perspective for what we're speaking with this traffic, the gentleman's right. The traffic, I think, is going to get worse. It's going to bottleneck. We've seen it with the pictures. I've lived here 8.5 years. I see it every day. There's traffic now on both sides, south and north, with 4 lanes. So if you take a lane away from each side, it's just going to get worse, not better. I think it just all ties into the MTA's rules of personally, they have cameras now on their buses. You can't pull over for more than 10 minutes and drop and pick someone off without getting a ticket from the MTA, right? So like, I just think we just need more lanes, not less. Yeah, that's really it. That's what I have. And then parking. You take away parking for people like me, we can't afford $250 and $300 parking spaces. That's what's going to end up happening. You take away 45 parking spaces, I'm paying $300 a month. It's an extra bill. It's going to kill a lot of us. It's you know, it's not feasible. So just consider that. And then the few spaces that we do have to park now, 233rd and 234th Street between Bailey and Broadway are vandalism centrals. Me and my shareholder friend here, our cars, you know, have been broken into, catalytic converters stolen. So like, you have to consider the parking where we do have now, it's problematic. So taking away more spaces is going to bring more trouble.
Thank you. Dan Kadanak, you want to speak? Got 2 minutes. No? No?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do appreciate it. So one, I'd like to thank DOT for, you know, coming to this community and trying to make safety improvements. We do appreciate that. I would say this, in general, I think this plan needs to go back after listening to community input and make changes. And to be direct, I think it's a little bit arrogant to come to this community on April 17 for the very first time and begin construction. It was, Margaret. April 17 was the first time this draft plan came out to this community. And it went on their website, I believe, the day after. It was the first time that draft plan came out and was presented to the community board and published. For that, it was just iterations. What I'm saying is to start construction this soon without actually listening to community input isn't something DOT should be doing. Within the plan, look, I'm for bike lanes. I believe they're safe. I do. What I don't like are the massive amounts of concrete that are going into this community. And I believe that there's really no need for it. I believe bike lanes can be created without that much concrete. I believe a lot more greenery needs to be put in. And I would like a commitment from DOT that they're going to be doing it, as opposed to saying we're going to do what we can to get the max amount of plantings. We don't see that here. So a lot more green needs to go in. With regard to West 230th Street, that's a very dangerous intersection. We all know it. And I think what you're doing there is actually going to make it worse. The fact is, there are certain intersections that pedestrians should not cross. And that north-south crossing you're putting there with that concrete barrier is going to make things worse for drivers, for pedestrians, for bicyclists, for everyone. It's going to create an even more dangerous situation there. Look, for me, traffic design is a balance between pedestrians, folks using motor vehicles, and bicyclists. I do all three, and I use all the different streets. I use all the greenways out there, and I don't see a balance here, and that's part of the problem. Safety is great. I like what you're doing, DOT, in taking the initiative, but you need to rethink this plan and come back after listening to the community, really listening to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Jack Marty? Jack?
Hi, I am a local resident. I live on Cannon Place for the last 25 years. I'm a pedestrian first. I'm a car owner and a bicycle rider. And I want to speak very strongly in favor of this plan. I think DOT put a lot of thought into it. I've always thought that Bailey Avenue, it's no local, I don't know why any local street has 4 car lanes. I mean, that's absurd. And what DOT is doing, it's long been proven that these traffic calming measures really do work. I know it's hard to see that sometimes. And as a driver, I'm perfectly happy to, I already don't speed, but the speeding on Bailey is way out of control. And you hear it at night too. There, it's very bad. So, and harm to businesses, I think it's been shown over and over again. When you make areas safer for pedestrians, safer for bicyclists, safer for cars too. This is safer for cars. Businesses will flourish. That's what's going to happen here. And it will enliven the Bailey Avenue corridor, not kill it. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Is Margaret Gronark?
Hi, I'm Margaret Rourke. I live on Giles. And I walk here, I walk to work across Bailey every day, and I ride my car. I do have a bicycle, but I haven't been on it in a while. But I really appreciated, this is the second time I've seen this presentation, so I don't think it's fair to say they're just coming here for the first time. I've seen it, and I know the executive committee also saw it. So this has been in process for a little while. I really appreciate the fact that this presentation emphasizes how dangerous Bailey is. It's shockingly dangerous. It's scary, and it's scary in a car, and it's scary on foot. And I wouldn't dare ride a bike on it right now myself. I know other people are braver than me. I think the turning lanes are a big asset. I'm looking forward to having a turning lane so I can come up to my neighborhood from Bailey. I think having the protected bike lane is great. The bike lanes that are on the other side of the cars often get ignored. And I think, those of us who don't really ride bikes have to think about a couple of things. One is there are people, our friends and neighbors, who ride bikes. We also, any of you who order food ever, somebody brings your food on a bicycle. You don't want that person to die. And also, I don't want somebody riding a bike on the sidewalk when I'm walking. And I don't want somebody riding a bike in front of me when I'm trying to drive. I want them to have their own lane so I don't have to worry that I'm going to kill them or that they're going to cause me an accident. So, Dan said about balance, and the balance right now is there's no place for the bikes. So we need to create a place for the bikes, and we're not losing parking to the bikes. We're losing parking to turning lanes, like the other elements of this plan. If like you look at it carefully and you'll see that that's the truth. So I think this is really about safety for everybody, and I look forward to seeing it put in action.
Thank you. Just one more person from the public, and then we're gonna go online. Elizabeth Soares.
I live on Bailey Avenue, on the southbound of 230th, that intersection, for 45 years. And I was wondering if this plan has been brought to the attention of the fire department, because they come barreling out of the firehouse down Bailey, and it's hard for them to maneuver now. If you block off a lane for them, what's gonna happen? And also Target. My issue is Target with the tractor trailers and all the traffic, because I avoid shopping, I avoid driving during the weekends, because it's taken me to go southbound on Bailey from 230 to 225th. It's taken me a half an hour. And I'm pulling my hair out and I want to abandon my car. Have you considered having a dedicated lane off of the highway for northbound and southbound to Target directly to the highway, from the highway, on the roof? Like, just like they have at the airports, they have like direct lanes, like an overpass to Target, and that would alleviate a lot of traffic off of 230. Because I also avoid coming, since Target has been built there, I do not use the exit at 230 coming from Westchester. I always get off at Van Cortlandt Park and I drive down Bailey Avenue.
We haven't been answering the questions in between, but if you want me to answer this one, I'm happy to. The answer is yes, we have coordinated with, so I have quarterly meetings with the FDNY borough team, and we've shared our plans in advance with the FDNY headquarters downtown. The presentation before we went to the community board, it went to FDNY. There is not a lane reduction on that block where the FDNY firehouse is. That shouldn't be a concern on that end. And actually, if you saw on the slides of the breakdown, the long sections in the middle of every block actually has the painted median with the yellow stripes. So in the case of an emergency, FDNY can actually use that and get to where they're going even faster. And also because of the left turn lanes, they wouldn't have to wait behind cars that are waiting to turn left. So we think actually this will be better for traffic and for FDNY. Right, so what I can answer that quickly. So this is part, DOT has been leading the nation as it relates to what's called Vision Zero. The idea is that we should have 0 fatalities. We want to drive our vision to get there. DOT, if I may finish, please, if I may. So starting in 2014, DOT was the first city to adopt it. And since then, other cities across the nation have done so. Since that, the city has actually seen the lowest traffic fatalities since recorded history. So we've been making these improvements. So the data shows that where we've made these projects, it actually works. We showed on the screen as well that when we put in these bike lanes, it's a reduction in fatalities as it relates to users of the bike lanes, people that are not using the bike lanes, and especially when it comes to seniors living in our communities, it was a 40% reduction. So when you say, how do we know? We look at the data, we look at what has happened. And I will also say other thing, as part of Vision Zero, we look at what we call the 3 E's. The first E is engineering. That's what we do. We design the streets in a way that makes it safer for everyone. The second one is education. As you've probably seen on bus stops and on the radio and on TV and elsewhere, we're spending dollars to really get out to the communities to tell people, if you're riding a bike, wear a helmet, don't ride on the sidewalk. If you're driving, make sure you're not speeding and you're following the rules. If you're a pedestrian, look both ways. That's the educational aspect. And then there's also the other E, which is enforcement. We work with our sister agencies like NYPD to enforce acts. With education, enforcement, and engineering, we have been able to significantly reduce the deaths in this city. And the data shows that that's working.
I understand you have a concern but you can also email the board office. We would like to address people who have their hand raised online, please, at this point. The person to the, yeah, Kelly? She has 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Perez, on slide 15, you closed off the slip lane, and as Mr. Adrian alluded to, that I don't think is something that would be beneficial to the community, because you will have the tractor trailers making wide turns. The Traffic and Transportation Committee addressed this in earlier iterations when you all started your construction, or you proposed the construction at the current intersection of Van Cortlandt Park South and Bailey Avenue. And it was determined at that point that that slip lane would not be closed because it would create more danger than it was trying to avoid. On slide 17, the concrete pedestrian island going across 234th Street, I did not see in any iteration a way for drivers traveling southbound on Bailey to make a left-hand turn onto 234th. It appears that DOT has completely taken that option off the table. And then on slides 19 and 20, I note that there's a left turn bay on at 230 going onto Albany Crescent. I note that DOT several years ago reversed the traffic on Albany Crescent. Perhaps DOT can now consider changing the direction back from going east instead of going west, and then this way that would negate having the turning lane there, and this way it would increase the flow of traffic coming off the 230th Street exit on the Deegan. And I'm looking at slide 21, there appears to be one travel lane between 225th Street and 230th Street going northbound. I'm trying to understand what was the rationale behind that. And lastly, there will be loss of 46 parking spaces, and has DOT considered removing some of the city bikes that they've installed to help bring some back some of the parking spaces that have been lost?
Thank you.
So again, I don't know if you want to respond to everyone. There were a couple previous comments that we didn't get a chance to comment on. So I do want to just quickly touch on those if we're going to do this and go comment by comment. I'm happy to do that. An earlier comment was made about the parking loss, and I want to address that here. There's 46 spots in this plan that were repurposed, but that's over a mile-long corridor. So if you were to compare that to a standard city block, 1 mile is about 20 blocks. So if you were to divide 46 by 20, you get 2.2. It's about 2 to 3 spots per corner. So nobody here is going to wake up one day and just lose all the parking spots in front of them. No block will just all of a sudden be missing their parking as well. We didn't look at a map and just draw a line and say, hey, delete all these spots and replace it with a bike lane. These are specific reductions or repurposing of spots at corners to help make the left turn bays and to make crossing the streets easier. And so these are, again, specific, surgical, methodical repurposing. It's not just a blanket treatment removing the parking. The parking will, the vast majority of all the parking in the corridor will remain there. And actually, that's why it's a parking protected bike lane that will be across the mile corridor. So I wanted to address that quickly on that end. The second thing I wanted to mention was some people mentioned, why don't you just put a speed hump here? What was mentioned at the beginning of the presentation was that this is a truck route. And because of that, because we're considering all users, whether you're a pedestrian or a driver or on a wheelchair or anywhere else, or you're serving a business, dropping deliveries off, we can't put speed humps where we have bus and truck routes. That's why we can't just put a speed hump on every single block. And even if we were to think about that, that would be a mile of speed humps every 30 feet. That's just impractical. So I just wanted to address that comment about why we don't do speed humps everywhere. Now, hi, Kelly. I want to address the comments that were made on the screen. We did come back previously last year to discuss a different project that was at Van Cortlandt Park South and Bailey, and that was about the pedestrian access to the park. At that point, there were concerns raised because of the new development that's happening at the former visitation school, where there's gonna be a new residential complex, and there were concerns about what that would mean when new residents or new students were coming to the area. At that point, what he said was, and we put it in writing, and he said for the 2024 proposal, we will be removing that to further study the impact of that new development. And what I said then, and I've said it multiple times at other meetings, is that if the argument is that you expect there to be more drivers because of new development, I would also argue that you expect to see more children at the intersection that are going to that school, and we need to make it safer for them. In addition, in the written document that we sent over to the board, and I'd love for that to be public if you want to, we listed there a response about the slip lane showing that because we're putting the right turn lane and the signal there at Van Cortlandt Park South and Bailey, we showed on a table there that the cars will actually travel faster to make that turn and not have to wait any longer because you have a dedicated turn lane. So we've shown and demonstrated that this will not slow down traffic, and it will actually make it better for drivers and for pedestrians. And that's why the slip lane was proposed to be closed again in this project. I think the truck turns, I do want to mention that, sorry, I do want to address all the points. You mentioned that there was not a turn at 234th Street, and there is. There's a dedicated turn lane for drivers that are making that left turn at 234th Street. So that is inaccurate. And
No, I said going southbound. There is a left turn lane going northbound, but there isn't a left turn lane going southbound. And regarding the Bailey and Van Cortlandt Park South, my concern really is the tractor trailers that would be turning from the Deegan and then on to
Understood,
Bailey
understood. The truck turns, and also the gentleman over there mentioned truck turns earlier. I want to be clear that all of the designs that we are proposing have been vetted by engineers to ensure that the trucks that can make the turns within the new design. So we recognize that the tractor trailers use this corridor, and the design accommodates the trucks that are using the corridor.
I'm sorry. Miss, I'm sorry. If you have concerns like that, you can email the board office, but right now we're following a format. The board office. There's
Madam-
cards outside.
Madam Chair? If I could
Yes.
just make two more comments from previous comments that were made. The other thing that was mentioned that I wanted to address as well was some of the things like in terms of the businesses and the parking lots. Where there is parking lots is not concentrated where there are businesses. So the parking lot is not at 238th Street, it's not at 234th Street. If you looked at the presentation, you'll see that they're actually further south and further up, and they're specifically at the corners. So where those businesses are, they will not be feeling the impact of the parking lots significantly or as much as others. And also the comment about, the businesses here between 234th and 238th, even the tire business owner that was mentioned, they're on this side of the street and the bike lane's on the other side of the street. So that business won't be impacted by the bike lane. The storefronts are on this side is what I meant to say. I apologize. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am, that if there's concerns of that sort, you can email the board office. This is about the Bailey Avenue project. So we have one more person online that I would like to get to, I believe, Mr.
Larry.
Yes, Larry. Larry has 2 minutes.
Okay, hello. I am a long-term resident of Bailey Avenue at the northern end. I'm approaching my 80s, and I have a direct stake in this. I want to say, first of all, that I agree with everything that Dan said, that this project needs a rethink for many, many reasons, and I'll discuss just one of the reasons right now. There will be no space for temporary double parking. I don't understand how then deliveries will be handled, how garbage pickup and drop-offs will be handled, how accessorides will be handled, who often wait 5 or 10 minutes for the person to come down. No personal pickups, no ambulances, service vehicles to the buildings will not be able to be in front of the building that they're dealing with. And one more thing, what if somebody has to move and a moving van comes? where is that moving van going to be? Where is that moving van going to stay? It's going to block all upstream traffic on Bailey Avenue. And this will be, in general, this will be a hardship to those who are elderly, who are disabled, mothers with children in particular, and many other groups in addition to the general population. And I don't understand how you can set things up so you cannot have temporary double parking in front of large buildings. My building is 180 units. There's a lot of activity in front of that building, and a lot of it is handled by temporary double parking. One more point on another issue in terms of the excessive speeding, in particular between 238th and 234th. I think that an excellent and very simple and inexpensive answer would be speed cameras. I don't know why that has not been brought up, but it should be. And perhaps in general, a little more enforcement by the NYPD would help everything. Again, this plan needs to be rethought. It's moving too fast, and I agree 100% with Dan. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just respond to your comment on curb regulations, loading. That's something that we can integrate into any of these street improvement projects. When we come to the board, we never want to be too prescriptive with those curb regulations because they're flexible. We want to hear from the community. We want to make sure that we have the right regulation for the land use. So as he points out, his building has need for deliveries. Well, we have a neighborhood loading zone program that reviews large residential buildings and creates little pickup and drop off, or if you're moving a package in or Amazon's dropping stuff off, we allocate the space for that. I think it's really important, and what he's bringing up is that there's a lot of different uses for the curb, not just parking. You know, we're repurposing for safety and turn bays. There's other needs that are along the curb, and he's pointing out that we should, you know, we want to hear from you all as this plan is rolling out, what kind of regulations are most appropriate in the different areas of the project.
Okay, I'd like to then add that if you'd like to hear from all of us, I think this plan is moving ahead way too fast, and it needs to slow down, and it needs some time for additional input from the community on apparently many issues that have not been thought about. It's more than simply calming traffic and making an ultra-wide 13-foot bike lane. There's more to Bailey Avenue than that.
Thank you, Larry, for your input. And with just one more person from online, Marissa? Yarissa.
Hi, thank you so much. So I know that one of the speakers mentioned having a 2-year-old. I have a 17-month-old. This project to me is extremely concerning. I feel like the attitude that was given towards the loss of the 46 parking spots was very, like, too bad, so sad. And I understand that it's not all in one place, but as someone who has a toddler, I have had to drive 5 miles going around and around and around, an hour, hour and a half, with a toddler in my back seat screaming his head off because he wants to get out of his car seat. So then now I'm driving, absolutely panicked, white knuckling my steering wheel because my child is aggravated and I cannot do anything about it because I can't just leave my car abandoned. And in our neighborhood, the parking is so bad. Police officers have been ticketing us in order to reserve parking for themselves because they are now using the same parking spots that they ticket the rest of us residents for. So while I understand I have a child who's I hopefully will be able to stay in this community, and he'll be able to attend school here. But we need to make sure that we're not inconveniencing the community to the point where we cannot stay here, where we're pushed out because we have nowhere to park our cars and I cannot afford the $200 parking spot, as someone had mentioned before, or the $100, $200 tickets. Like there has to be other alternatives. I understand you want to make these changes, but then look for other spots and other regulations that you can take away, or take away parking meters, or move like certain like bus rest stops or unnecessary regulations. If you just take away parking, people have to move further away. And I don't want to be walking an hour away from where my home in order to get to my apartment late at night with my toddler, because you're not taking that into consideration either. How far am I parked from my home? And now I have to walk that late at night by myself with my toddler.
Thank you.
If I, so first, this is Anthony. I was the one that started speaking. I mentioned my 2-year-old. I want to start by apologizing to you and anyone who may have felt my response may have sounded flippant about the loss of parking. I do acknowledge that it's a real thing and that people do need their parking for different needs. And that wasn't meant to be in a way that's dismissive. What we look at is, we frame it as we're repurposing parking and it's for safety. Like, as I mentioned, I just wanted to explain that at least the distinction that there are some projects where all of the parking is removed for a bike lane or for a different purpose. But this project isn't doing that. This project is talking about specific spots at specific locations. And as we noted on that slide, each of them is for a specific purpose: to help someone in a wheelchair get onto the bus, to help someone crossing the street see when the car is coming from another direction, to make sure the driveway works for the homeowners that are along Bailey Avenue. Like, each of these was done thoughtfully, and they wasn't done with a broad stroke. So that was just the point that I was trying to make. But I do acknowledge your point about how parking is still necessary, especially for parents of young children. So I just wanted to make that comment on that end.
No, I understand. I just would like for you to look at other restrictions that exist in the area. Like, for example, there's a block on Van Cortlandt Park South where we have to move every day between 8:30 and 6 p.m. Why? Just look at other areas where you can release some of these restrictions, because again, police officers are ticketing us so that they can
We,
park in those
we hear
spots.
your concern, we hear your concern, and we appreciate what you're saying. Those specific concerns that you have that's not related to this project, please, you can email the board office and we will address it with the agency that's involved.
No, I've addressed it before via email, ignored.
We're closing questions from the public at this point.
I'd like to make a quick response to Martin on his concept of loading zones. If you start putting loading zones in front of every building or every major building, there will be countless additional parking spaces that will be lost. And that's one of the
Exactly.
Okay, 1 minute each, because we have to leave this space and we still have things on the agenda.
32 years old. I think removing the double lanes is a bad idea. I think removing parking is a bad idea. I hear you, all you guys' data points. I hear that y'all collected information from other places, but those other places ain't this place. I'm up 5 a.m. every day. There's traffic. There's traffic at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. from people from all over, from upstate, from Jersey. These people are coming from all over the place to cross the bridge from Jersey, all over the place from upstate. The one lane idea is just a bad idea overall. You don't know how many people get off the Major Deacon to drive local, to skip all that traffic that's happening on the highways. Also, the bike lane, I ride bikes, I'm very athletic, but unfortunately, that's another bad idea because there's elderly who walk throughout the lanes, there's people who get hit by bikes. So we have to think about those things. Gentlemen, you said that the bike lane, that the speed bumps isn't a good idea. They have speed bumps on Tibbet Avenue. I grew up all my life. They have speed bumps throughout the mile. So I think maybe you guys have to think of another solution because removing that lane is just a bad idea.
Yeah, just real quick to respond to that. A reminder is that at every intersection, we're leaving the same number of approach lanes to process the traffic through those intersections. The lane reduction happens in between, where we see the speeding, where we see the unpredictable behavior, where we see the double parking. We can't be parking in a travel lane might be convenient for loading, unloading, but it's very unpredictable for all road users. as a driver, you come up on someone and all of a sudden they're parked, then you're swerving into the other lane unpredictably. We need to reduce that kind of behavior on the corridor, right? So that's the kind of design solution that we're presenting here. Your question or your comment about seniors, we can go back to that slide, but it's counterintuitive, I know, but protected bike lanes are our greatest safety benefits are seen with our seniors. 39% reduction in the killed and severely injured crashes when we looked at over a 10-year period of dozens, hundreds of projects that we've implemented throughout the city. But appreciate your comments. Thank you.
1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Allen. Thank you, Mr. Perez. Thank you, the board and the members of the engineering group. Since you have the engineering group here, one of the things you really need is to have the user group, and that's what we are. On the issue of parking spaces project at Van Cortlandt Park is going up right now. That's going to be 363 more units, rental units, plus a 750 student school. That's going to be over 1,000 more people moving into the neighborhood. Your issue of bike lanes, Empire Trail connecting, wonderful. How many people are riding from New York all the way up to Canada? Finish the Putnam Trail. Take that down to 225th Street. Forget about the Tibbetts Brook. Put pipe down if you want underneath that and then pave over that. Get CSX to give us that land. Emergency vehicles. St. John's is a church on Kingsbridge Avenue, which is also an artery. There was a fatality during a snowstorm because emergency vehicles couldn't get there. The church, man died. Okay, you got to consider that those emergency vehicles use Van Cortlandt Park, use Bailey Avenue. Lastly, add speed cameras. It's been echoed before. There's only one, I think, and it's down towards Sedgwick. And then new lights on the turning lanes on the 234th Street. Use the cross streets also, you know, as the turning lanes. Not so much Bailey.
Okay, thank you so much. So the committee, we have heard the public, we've heard DOT, we've heard the concerns, we've reviewed emails on the Bailey Avenue project.
Motion to move for vote. I have a motion to move to vote on this regarding this project.
Second. Sylvia, can you hear us? We're voting on the Bailey Avenue project. How many are for the Bailey Avenue, Van Cortlandt Park Southwest 225th Street Corridor Safety Improvement Plan as it's stated? We're voting on the plan. 1 in favor of the plan. I'm against the plan. Opposed? Sylvia?
Against.
3 opposed, 1 for. We're now moving on to the discussion of DOT City Bike Phase 3. Thank you, DOT. And we'll have something formally in writing. City Bike?
Anthony.
City Bike will not be doing a presentation because they've done it already. But we do have it if the community wants to see it again. Do you want to go through it quickly? we're gonna just briefly go through the slides that they presented. No one here is from City Bike. But just like City Bike, we have received several emails and a lot of dialogue regarding the City Bike program and how it will impact Community Board 8. So Artie, if you can just go through the slides quickly. The bike program is a shared bike program. It's to help with improving mobility. You can go on to the next slide. And let's just skip actually to the areas that it's going to impact and its locations. Okay, the next slide. Just like this presentation, it does impact people's ability to move around. They're looking at adding on 22 new stations. And on a map, they have the plan specifically. They want to have a station at Riverdale Avenue West 263rd Street on the roadbed. The second location is Riverdale Avenue and 261st Street East roadbed, Broadway and 261st Street, and the roadbed there, David Sheraton Plaza and Broadway, Fieldston Road and Mosholu Avenue. On the sidewalk, Riverdale Avenue, 258th Street West on the roadbed. Number 7, Riverdale Avenue and 254th Street East on the roadbed. Can you go to the next slide? And Broadway, 252nd Street East on the roadbed. Post Road and West 250th Street West on the sidewalk. Broadway, 251st Street and the East roadbed. Waldo Avenue and Manhattan College Parkway East roadbed. 238th Street and Riverdale Avenue South roadbed. Henry Hudson Parkway and 237th Street West on the sidewalk. West 237th Street and Hudson Manor Terrace. West 231st Street and Independence Avenue and South Walk. Johnson Avenue and West 235th Street East of roadbed. Netherlands Avenue, 32nd Street and West on the roadbed. Henry Hudson Parkway East and West 231st Street off the street along the parkway. West 231st Street and Tibbetts Avenue and South on the sidewalk. Cabot Street and Independence Avenue South on the roadbed. And Knowles Crescent Street and East on the roadbed. So a great deal of the issues is with the location of where the city bikes are going to be and on the roadbed itself. So does the committee have anything to say about city bike? Add the community? Yes.
Use the mic.
Thanks. I just want to say, like, the part of Community Board 8 that we live in already has city bikes. And I can't use a city bike to go to Riverdale because there's no place for me to park it. So I can't go to Cocina Cente on a city bike. There's a dock on my block, but when I get up to Cocina Cente, I have nowhere to leave the bike. So I don't know exactly about locations, but I think there really should be some in Riverdale that it should be part of the citywide network so people can go from one place to another on the bikes.
How are you? My name is Mario. I'm actually one of the owners of Salvatores of Soho. I'm actually against this I'm not against the city bikes, but I'm against where the location is. Taking parking, it's absolutely a disaster, and I'm sure everyone drives through, and right now, we have triple parkers, not just double parking, that's regular parking doesn't exist anymore on Riverdale Avenue. And luckily, thank God, we're busy, but I am against also the double parking, and imagine having these 2-3 spots being taken off from us, it is gonna be a lot of damage from us. You know, I would try to relocate it. It could be on Riverdale Avenue. Like I said, I'm not against it, but somewhere where no parking should be taken out.
I'm pleased. I love your pizzeria. And in fact, I would take a city bike from this side of Community Board 8 to go eat at your pizzeria if, but I can't do that now because there's no place to park them. So, and it really goes to the point that you think, oh, if we lose parking, we lose customers. No, you gain customers if you make things more pedestrian and bike friendly.
I'll be quick. I am against the city bikes, depending on where they placed, if they're taking up parking. The city bikes are expensive. I've taken the city bikes and I've paid a lot of money, $30, just to use it for 15 minutes. So that's kind of my thing. If it was more affordable or more accessible, then maybe, but I don't think right now would be a good point. And city bikes are used more in the summer and not the winter, so I'm against.
Programs to make city bike affordable, like if you have SNAP or any program that you qualify for a hugely reduced membership. And yeah, if you use it one time off, it is expensive. You got to become a member in order for it to be cost effective.
Okay. People who have emails, the board at office, they may have left, but they have on Riverdale Avenue, the sidewalks on Riverdale Avenue in many places are wider than the sidewalks in the commercial areas within already approved lists. Our recommendation is to replace the Riverdale Avenue West 263rd, West 261st, West 258th, and West 254th Street with nearby locations on the sidewalks, which are plentiful. Possibilities include Riverdale Post Office on 5951 Riverdale Avenue, and 5676 Riverdale Avenue by the Community Board Office. Broadway, there are 5 locations between West 261st Street and West 255th Street. This is an excessive, densely residential stretch that is clearly a parking desert. The area between West 254th Street and Lakeview have already lost approximately 18 parking spots as a result of the 2018 Broadway redesign. So we do have, some people that are for city bikes, but are not happy with the location.
My hand is up.
Go ahead, Laura. Go ahead, Laura.
Deb read some of what I sent in today. I'm speaking for the Broadway Community Alliance, a North Riverdale civic group formed in 2011, focusing on quality of life and land use issues. And our major concern is the negative impact on local businesses and residents from reduced parking on Riverdale Avenue. Deb stated my specific changes, but understand our goal is to work with DOT and our elected officials to relocate street bed stations with sidewalk installations, which would be a win-win for everybody. And Deb gave some of our suggestions for Riverdale Avenue and for Broadway. I have to add a few little things. I'll be quick. The plan indicates an installation on the west sidewalk of Post Road and 251st, and we consider it overkill to place additional installations at both 251st and 252nd Streets. The David Sheridan Plaza on Marshall and Broadway is labeled pedestrianized. Please clarify what that means and if parking will be lost. This parking is absolutely essential to our residents and businesses on Marshall Avenue. According to DOT's report presented to Bronx Community Board 8 on May 15th, city bike installations, quote, may be placed on Parks Department or city property at agency's discretion, unquote. As the sidewalk on the east side of Broadway is very narrow, we implore DOT to work with the Department of Parks to consider the park's grass edge. It would be very narrow, and then you would not be removing any parking spaces. We are curious as to why Citibank stations have not been proposed for Riverdale and Spuyten Duyvil Metro North stations and Wave Hill, important destinations. We urge a tour at your earliest convenience with elected officials and Community Board 8 to review our suggestions before final decisions are made. Again, thank you for this opportunity to comment, and I'm looking forward to working with DOT because this can be solved. We don't need to lose parking. There are plenty of other opportunities. Thank you.
Steve,
There's one more person, Steve, and Steve, you have 1 minute. Steve?
Hello, can you hear me?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to unmute. I own a business on Riverdale Avenue. I strongly oppose to City Bike being placed on the avenue during at a very busy section. It's a business district. I'm not opposed to City Bike. Like Mario said, I'm not opposed to City Bike. I think it's a great addition. But placing it right on Riverdale Avenue, where we have buses, pedestrians, schools, there's so many elements coming together on those 2-3 blocks. It's definitely going to be a major issue. We shouldn't add additional elements of danger because you will add danger. We can't have it there. We just can't have it, and we can't just accept the fact that here, this is what we proposed and this is what we're going to do. They have to take us business owners into consideration. This is how we make our living. This is how we serve the community. And taking away spots and making it even more difficult for us is just out of the question.
Thank you, Steve. We have Councilman Dinowitz, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, I want to echo the last two statements you heard, and I think it's the general sense of the community and the feeling that I have, which is I'm a fan of city bikes, but not when they take up very precious parking. And between this presentation and the last, we were looking at the loss of a significant number of parking spaces. One of the frustrations I think that is shared by many in the community is you have a council member like me and community members who say, let's work together to find spots where this fits. We've done walkthroughs of previous city bike docks and other parts of Community Board 8, made alternate recommendations, none of which were taken. We have asked multiple times for usage data on the city bikes. They did not ever provide, the Department of Transportation did not ever provide the usage data despite requesting it multiple times. And I think it's really, really disappointing that you have community members and council members, elected officials who say, let's work together, and an agency that doesn't appear to want to work in collaboration. And I have offered before this plan was sent out to walk around to look at some particular spots. So that offer still stands, but I do want to point out that many reasons we see across the city communities blanket opposed to this is because very often a city agency like the DOT appears unwilling to work in concert with the community. So I stand ready to work with Laura, with the businesses to say, let's do this, but let's do it together to find street space where we can have the city bikes, where it doesn't have to take up parking, and DOT demonstrate that willingness to work with us to do the walkthrough and to provide the usage statistics that we have requested in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So we've heard the community.
I just wanted to.
We just, the pricing for the city bikes.
Only because he mentioned that he spent $15, and just because we're on Zoom to let the NYCHA people know that they get a discounted rate.
Okay, I'm looking for that page.
Yeah, right here. So as noted by our chairwoman, it should emphasize that while there are specific memberships and day passes, there are reduced fare for NYCHA and SNAP. I believe it's $5 a month. Annual commitment is optional, and it also includes unlimited 45-minute rides. So if you are a member of of one of these populations affected groups, strongly recommend that you look into that, because there may be options that are more affordable.
Okay. So the committee has heard the public. Is there any other questions from us?
I would like to say, I think much in line with a lot of people, I think any options where we can provide resources that are not simply driving is certainly valuable. I do understand that the city bike modus operandi requires a network, because again, it doesn't work if it isn't a network. However, I think, as stated by a lot of people, I think greater consideration should be made to some of the fine tuning of where these stations are, because I think there are a lot of concerns as to location and the impact on the community and congestion and the like. So personally, in this current configuration, I think it needs to go back to the drawing board.
Anything?
I agree. DOT would like to know what this board's suggestion is for spots that would work, as well as spots that we don't think would work. So I do believe you should make a list, like a dedicated list that they can follow. And that's what they're asking for.
Any other questions? So as laid out on their May 15, 2025 proposal, we're not going to move forward with their proposal that they have standing, and we will provide them a list that is from the community. So to eliminate as many spot eliminations, and especially in front of businesses. We do have different letters from different businesses and organizations that have provided us with those different aspects, and we will forward that in a written response to City Bike.
If I may, Deb, say something. It's Laura. If I. Oh, she can't.
So we just have to keep moving on the agenda. And is the business, we have a dining out sidewalk cafe application, the Bronx Public, are they online? Are they here?
What's the name, Farah, do you know?
PNK is the Bronx Public.
Yeah, it's on there. The name is written on there.
The Bronx Public. Yeah.
Antonio Feliz or Ada Gomez?
I don't see any of them here.
I mean, you can weigh in based on what you see, and we can follow up with questions with them.
We have reviewed their application for the Bronx Public. And I don't see any barriers or any issues. They're in compliance with the design.
Yeah.
Does anybody on the committee have any issues with the sign?
No issue. I have no issues. I think it is agreed. They appear to be in compliance and it goes to be a good location. I would like a motion to move to accept their dining out application.
Anybody opposed to the application? Sylvia? We're voting for the SAFO application. For the
Well,
side.
it is disturbing that they didn't appear. Because I had some questions about it, so I can't be either for or against. I abstain.
You abstain?
Mm-hmm.
1 abstention, 3 in favor. They can review it at the next board meeting. Okay, we're gonna move the Summit Place. There was a presentation on the design of Summit Place, Step Street on Bailey Avenue and Heath Avenue, and a lot of work went into it. It's gonna make it accessible, handicap accessible for seniors. It's gonna make it accessible for people with bikes. The design is on our website. I think they considered a lot of different things. One potential problem with the design, part of the Step Street, it does look directly into some people's apartments on one side. And I know they said they're gonna try to possibly work out that issue with the design, but it's gonna be a ramp access on Bailey Avenue. There's gonna be also stairs and a bike channel. One of the other issues is the fact we're gonna have less green and a little more concrete than there was before. But it's gonna make it more accessible. The design, it's gonna take a couple of months to really complete this project, this Step Street project. And it will also take up approximately 6 parking spots during the construction period, which will be given back after they've completed the construction. And we've received no issues from the public, no outreach of any concerns. And it's gonna take about until 2029. Yeah. 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 Yeah, they're still working on the completion of the design itself, so they're gonna come back to the community board in the next, probably in the fall, but the design, the way they have it outlined now, it looks like it's gonna be awesome, but it's gonna take a while.
As they said in their presentation, this is in some ways a proof of concept. They are looking at all the step streets and are trying to make the ones that are feasible ADA compliant and more amenable to everyone. And so there are a few others in the works, and the thought process is that going down the line, any step streets that can be made better would eventually undergo some sort of renovation.
You need the mic so the
need the
people
mic?
on Zoom can hear you. That's okay.
I just want to say, like, we've been told since before the pandemic that this was in the budget. It's like, I don't really know how the city budget works, that something's in the budget for a decade and, you know, and then it'll get done in the next decade. So
That's the projection, so. We're open if any suggestions, you know, it's on the website to look at the Summer Street Step Street. Oh, does somebody has their hand up? Yes. Oliver.
Hi, everyone. Good evening again. I was there earlier. Thanks for letting me speak again. Just wanted to add in really quickly when it comes in reference to the Step Street. I live across the street. Many of the shareholders feel strongly about the Step Street. I actually added it to one of the areas where I wanted the budget to go for Pierina Sanchez. And it's a great project. I just checked out the design. It looks great. I can't wait to see it done. What I want to mention and bring to your all attention, and the community board may know because I've been a part of community meetings with NCOs and local law enforcement, that at the bottom of it, there's a detrimental business that affects the neighborhood. Just hanging out in front of the Step Street on Bailey Avenue. There's a bodega there. It's on the side of it. It's constant drinking, loud music playing. I mean, dominoes, the whole 9 yards. So that's what I wanted to bring to your all's attention. Just so you know, it's going to look beautiful by 2029. You know, the investment is going to be great, but it's just going to suffer that you know, that quality of life aspect of it, especially you know, warm nights and the evenings. So just wanted to point that out. And it is because you guys are the community board, because of this business that kind of allows it and feeds it, you know, alcohol, and kind of opens it up to that. And for somebody like me and the other shareholders, we don't like it. But it's a great investment, and I love it.
Well, any safety issues, we do have a safety committee. And you can also email the board office, and those concerns can be directed to that chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no unfinished business. There's no new business. Looking for a motion. Motion to close. Adjourn.
Seconded.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.